Growing up, my favorite superhero was Superman, and since Superman is arguably DC Comics' most popular and profitable IP, there have been a lot of Superman stories over the years, and when there's a lot of stories about a character, you end up getting some good ones and some bad ones. Today I want to talk about one of my favorite comics, and definitely my favorite Superman comic, and that's All-Star Superman by Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely. It's in 2 volumes as far as the trade paperback. It is a 12-issue limited series. I'm sure you can buy a 1-volume omnibus. This story, what makes it so great is that it's very modern feeling, but it also kind of harkens back to kind of the wild imagination of the Superman stories from the 50s, from like the Mort Weisinger era. Kind of hits all the Superman tropes you want a good Superman story to hit. There's a Bottle City of Candor, there's Bizarro, there's the Daily Planet, there's his friendship with Jimmy Olsen, there's the romance with Lois Lane. There's kind of all the things right there. The only thing that it didn't have that I feel like I miss is like a crypto story. Real standouts of this story are the creative team. Frank Quitely is the artist. I know when he and Morrison were doing New X-Men together, I saw a lot of talk on message boards that Frank Quitely is not everybody's cup of tea, but I just can't believe that. I can't imagine it, because he's such an incredible artist in my mind. The things he really excels at in this series, one is the difference, and a lot of people have said this, but the difference between Superman and Clark Kent. People always make the joke about, you just put on a pair of glasses and you can't tell it's him. But he quietly takes it so much further than that, where he has Clark's posture is different than Superman's. His physical presence is very different. He kind of lets his body droop and sag. Whereas when he's Superman, it all comes up into the chest, and his posture changes. And he portrays that very well in pencil art. The other thing Quitely is really good at is kind of, to me, I don't know if you'd call it acting, but like body movements, gestures. His people that he draws really look like they occupy the real world. Even though they're superheroes and they're doing incredible, fantastic things, they stand like people stand. They gesture like people gesture. And I think Quitely's great at that. What Morrison's really good at, one, he's inventive, and he has the ability to kind of look at these concepts like Superman. Well, I said there's so many stories about Superman told, but then Morrison looks at it from a different point of view than anybody else can, and I think part of that comes from being British and not growing up in the land of Superman in America. But also, Morrison, his worldview is very esoteric, and that helps writing superhero stories, I think. The way in this series, and I'm going to try to remain spoiler free, but the way Superman ultimately defeats Lex Luthor in this story, I have to think was heavily inspired by Morrison's view of the world and kind of the oneness of creation and life and people, and there was so many great moments in the story, but the moment where Lex Luthor is defeated and how he's defeated, I think, is one of the most interesting Superman tropes I have ever seen, and was worth the price of admission just for that moment. But totally check these out. Volume 1, Volume 2. A lot of people really complained about this posture, saying, Superman, he's sitting on a cloud. Like, what's that? How come he's not hands on the hips, chest out? But what Morrison and Quitely have talked about trying to portray with this is that if you're the most powerful man in the world, if you were invulnerable, then it's really easy for you to relax. Like you're not always gonna be in this defensive mode. Instead, you're gonna be really kind of open to everything. And so that's kind of what they were trying to portray with that cover. And I think that's another really great insight into the character of Superman that a lot of people don't explore. So anyway, one of my favorite comics, highly recommended to anybody, whether you're a Superman fan or not. I like to think if you're not and you read this, maybe you will be after that. But anyway, thanks for watching.